This video tutorial will guide the user how to import multiple CAD files to construct a multi-story model, and for this example we're going to be using Adapt Builder 2016. Really we're just going to be utilizing Modeler. However, it's fairly common to have Edge and Floor Pro also active in order to just analyze and design the levels for a multi-story structure. So we'll leave those two on as well. They won't affect anything that we're doing in terms of the um, conversion. So we'll select OK. We've already selected and created a file that includes levels. So in this example, we're actually going to be importing levels 5 through 22 of a multi-story structure. We're going to assume that the base is one level below level 5. So we'll go ahead and just navigate to this particular model. And you can see under the level assignment tool from the Story Manager toolbar, we have several levels here. We have levels 5 up through level 22. And the way that those levels were created is by use of either the add function within the reference plane manager, or the user can use this option to replicate reference planes. And I'll just give a brief example of how that is done. So if we go and open a new model, and in the new model you can see under the level assignments we have three typical assignments. We have bottom, current, and top plane. And maybe we want to add an additional 20 stories to this structure. So again, the user can just simply add levels to the structure using add, and then relabel the name of the level. And I'll go ahead and delete those. The other option is to use this option to copy reference planes. If we copy reference planes, I'll copy the reference plane 20 times. I'll go back to level assignments, and you can see that the program inserts 20 additional planes in the sequence. And again, the user would be required to go back and relabel those plane levels. And that's exactly what we had done on the model that we looked at previously. So we'll go back to that model. What we do need to do, however, is insert another level. Level 5 really is not the bottom level. Level 5 is the first elevated level. So we want to insert a level below level 5. However, the program currently does not allow levels to be assigned below the lowest level or the level that is selected. So if I select add, you can see that the program adds a level between 5 and 6, and it's actually called plane 19, which was the next level in sequence through automated level assignment or through addition of a level here. So we'll just go here, and under level 5 I'm going to call this base, and I'll go back, and at level 5 or plane 19 we will call that level 5. So we just have to insert a level and then rename, and now we have our levels ready to go. So we have three CAD files that are going to represent the levels in this model. Levels 5 through 18 are typical. Level 19 is its own separate CAD file, and then levels 20 through 22 are separate. Before we begin importing those CAD files, we're going to create a reference mark or a reference point. So I'll just use the option to create a line, and in the yellow bar at the bottom left I'm going to put in 0, 0, 10, and I'll just add a point marker there. And this is going to be used to align the levels vertically using an anchor point, which in our case will be the corner of a wall group. We'll go now to File. We're going to import our CAD file. So we'll go to DWG DXF, and we'll navigate to the file that we want to work with today. So under Video Tutorial Files, we have three separate CAD files. We're first going to look at Adapt 5 through 18.dwg. When we import that CAD file, we need to calibrate it. We need to scale it within our interface. So that's necessary when we import CAD files. We can calibrate after the fact, but we want to calibrate typically when we import the file. We're also going to move the file that we import so that it's aligned with this reference point. So we want to be able to move it. We're going to insert this at level 5, which is the first in sequence of the typical levels, and then we'll just call this level 5 through 18 and say OK. This is just the group name. When we import the CAD file, it assigns it to its own CAD group that we can then turn off and on graphically. And we can see the CAD group is quite a ways away from the reference point. The first thing we calibrate, and at the bottom left it's prompting us to enter the start point of the calibration line. We don't have any reference grids or dimensions in this model, so we're just going to assume that the distance between this column leg on the short side is 20 inches. And I'll go ahead and select point 1, point 2, and we're now going to input the dimension in feet. So we'll say that's 1.67 feet. Enter, and it's now move the model from point A to point B. So I don't see the model in this case, so I need to zoom extents, and we can see that the reference marker is right there. You can barely see it, and the model is way over here. The model, you can see the x coordinates about 19 to 20,000 feet. So we want to get that back into a location that's reasonable, and I'll just use this corner of the wall group, which stacks vertically through the building, as my reference marker. So we'll select that point, I'll come out here, and I'll move that into position where I had my reference point, which was here. And now we're ready to transform these components into structural components, or these lines into structural components. Now during the import we had we had an issue with some of the slab regions up here, so we'll have to kind of manually adjust that. This was actually supposed to be somewhat of an arc around this column. The program does not accept arcs, so it actually segments lines when you have arcs, but we'll go ahead and work around that, and we'll begin the conversion process. Now there's two CAD layers that can be turned off immediately. The first is this layer. This is really just a representation of a masonry infill wall, and it doesn't really have anything to do with the structural components, so we're going to turn it off for now. We can turn it back on once we're ready to actually apply line loads in a model, but it's under the layer Adapt Wall, and when you double click you can see the layer settings that it is assigned to. We also want to turn off this text that tags the columns, which is S text. And I'll go to my layer settings. Under the layer settings, I'm going to just reorder those and sort them in alphabetical order. And we'll go first to Adapt Walls. I'll turn Adapt Walls off, and I'll go scroll down to S text, and we're going to turn off S text. And we'll say OK. And now we're left really with just the basic structural components. So the first thing we'll do is we're going to convert the slabs. So we have our main slab outline here, and I'll use the option under the Transform to Structural Components toolbar, and I'll just transform that slab, number 1. We'll go back and adjust slab thicknesses later. The second slab I'll transform is this slab. So there's slab 2, and I can actually just select each one of these slabs in a group, and we'll transform those slabs. Now this slab here is overlapping the main slab, so I can always bring that slab back and move it back to here. You'll notice that when I select this, it actually selects the polyline first because this was the first in sequence, but if I press Tab, it will toggle between the polyline and the slab region, or the structural component. So I know that it's a structural component. It has this red X in the middle of it, and now I can grab this point and move it back using my snap to intersection to that point there. So we have our slab regions. Over at this side, this polyline is again does not look good, so we'll go ahead and just delete that, and we're going to arbitrarily just model a slab there just to represent something. You can also see there's this little jog right there in the slab, and that could potentially be problematic when we go to mesh the slab. So I'll select that, I'll select the option to delete the point, and I'll delete that point so that those are aligned properly. And it actually looks like this point should be there, and let's say this point we're going to move to there. Okay, and we're going to now open the build toolbar and just build a slab around these other columns. This is maybe a balcony slab here, so we have another slab there. Alright, so we're now going to transform openings. So I'll go ahead and just hand select the openings in this case. There's not too many openings, so it's easy to just hand pick those rather than sort the layer. So we have our openings. I'll use the option to transform openings, and we can see the openings layer. If you want to kind of review this as you build the model, I typically would recommend you use the option for View Model, the model viewer. This kind of shows you what you have in place at that particular level. You can actually see the CAD file. If I turn the CAD file off or on, you can see it stacked on top of the actual model in this view. So that's a nice representation of the CAD file and the structural components. The next thing we're going to do are the columns and walls for this level. Now the columns and walls are on the same layer, and I don't want to have to go in and hand pick each one of these components. So what we'll do is isolate that particular layer. I'll go to Layer Settings, I'll say All Layers Off, and then we'll go and scroll down to Adapt Shear Walls and Columns and select OK. And now we're left with only viewing the shear walls and the columns. If we take these wall groups like so, actually let's just do one of these first. If I take a wall group, and a wall group would be represented by multiple legs of walls, not just one straight line. And in this case I can use the option to transform into several walls. The program transforms that into 3 wall legs. And the same thing can be done here and also here. We have a little bit of a misalignment right at this edge, so we'll go ahead and delete this wall. And there may be corrections that need to be made for some of the conversions, but the reason this happened was we have this tiny piece here that the program could not represent because it doesn't meet a threshold value for wall length. So now I need to align this wall such that it is orthogonal, and so I'll use Align and just move that. I'll use the option for Snap to Orthogonal, and now I can select this and just bring it over to the point where that intersects. The thickness of the wall, if we match the thickness of this side, it's 13.4 inches thick, it looks like. So we'll say 13.4. And we've done that. Now we could model this leg also if needed, but it has to meet a minimum threshold that's written in an initialization file in the program. So let's just go through and finish some of these walls. And you can see this actually gives the error that there is a wall thickness less than what is required for the conversion. It looks like it's this wall right there. We'll just take this and shift that out to there. Okay, let's go and just review this wall, make sure it's being created properly so you can see the 3 wall groups. Now for this, we're going to ignore this tiny return, and I'll just use the option to build a wall manually for this condition. So we'll go to Create a Wall, and I'm going to select from there over to there on the right hand side, and then for the remaining wall group we can convert that. This has the same issue as what we saw earlier, so we'll use the line tool again with Snap Orthogonal and realign that. And then we'll readjust the thickness again. Make make sure you select the green checkbox to accept that change. And then finally we have the latter two walls here. So our walls are now completed. If we go back to our model view, we can see the wall group there. If we take one column, for example this column, and I transform this one particular column, I'll select the option to transform the column. Going back to our model view, you can see there's one column that's been transformed. So you can imagine if you have many columns, we want to select those either by layer filtering, which we've done. So I'll go ahead and just start selecting these columns. Because the walls and the columns are on the same plane, or on the same layer, excuse me, then you have to use the option where you select control and then pick the components you want to transform. We can't just sweep or window sweep the view. So we have the columns selected. We'll just transform those columns. It's telling us a column already exists at one of the locations, and let's go ahead and look at the view here. So this is the view. The reason these columns have turned pink is because there were multiple polygons at the same position. So there were two polygons at every column location. Therefore, there's actually two columns at every position, which requires a little bit of cleanup. So if the CAD file that you're working with has a few errors, then you'll have to clean that up on the builder side. But that's all right. We'll go ahead and do that and illustrate how that's done. I'm going to turn off all of my layers. So I'll turn all layers off, and now I only want to view the structural components. So if I go to the blue eyeglasses, which is select set view items, there's multiple ways to view the components. I can turn on my components under display, shown here. I can save this as my default display, so that anytime I want to go back to default, I'll use this option, go to default display. Or I can use the option under the structural components display toolbar that allows me to just isolate the view of different things. So I'm going to turn the slabs off, I'll turn my openings off and my walls off, and we're going to clean up the columns, because this will, if we copy these columns vertically at each typical level, then we're going to have an issue and have to delete them in those levels also. So I'll just select one column and delete and delete. You can see there are two columns there. So I need to go through now and just delete each one of these one time at every column location, except this one. That one I only converted once when I was showing how to convert the columns. Oops, we have one there that is not duplicated. Okay, and that one also is not duplicated. So you have to be careful. Obviously if you press delete and it disappears, that means there's only one column at that location. I can't really tell how many polygons were actually stacked on one another because they were in the same position. So that's why you have to do this in this manner. I think I checked this one. Let's do that one more time. So that looks okay. That one is also okay. This is the first column that was actually flagged as a duplicate, therefore it remains pink. If you want to restore the color, I'll go back to my blue eyeglasses, go to color palette, column, and this just restores the colors to the defaults. So if I go to my display, my default display, we now have our model for level 5, and this can be copied up now through multiple levels. If we look at this, we can see this becomes our file. The CAD file can be turned on underneath that if needed for representation. In fact, I can turn off my components here and turn the CAD file off and on also, so long as it's actually in view. So if I go to Group Library, turn this CAD file on, and then go into my viewer, you can see the CAD file is now turned back on. turning the components off. The CAD file is shown there. Okay, I don't want that CAD file to remain on. I'll turn that off in the view. And for each of the different slabs, we can assign thicknesses. So for example, the main slab I'll assume is 8 inches thick, and then I might have balconies here. This balcony, let's say, is 7 inches, and it has a 1-inch drop associated with it. And then this one we might say is 6 inches, and it has a 2-inch drop, and so on. So whenever you have a slab nested inside of another slab, the slab that's smaller will take precedence over the geometry in that area. So this slab here is actually nested inside of the main slab. Because of that, the program will recognize this slab in this region. If I take a section cut through here, you can see that we have our 8-inch slab and we have our 6-inch slab with a 2-inch drop right there. The drop is shown, so the user can easily model slabs and different geometries for a given configuration. So we'll assume that the other slabs are okay. We're now going to take this and we're going to copy this up multiple times. In this case, we're going to copy this up 13 times to level 18. So we'll use the option to copy and move vertically from the Story Manager toolbar. This can also be invoked from Modify, Copy Move Vertical. And we're going to copy up 13 times. And select OK. And we have some column replication again. The warning just appeared. When we go and analyze or go to mesh and then analyze, the program will actually flag where the replication occurs, so we can tackle it at that point also. But we have now a series of levels from 5 to 18. If we look at a side view, you can see the level assignments with the floors that are associated with those levels, or the reference planes. And if I go back to my my model view, and let's turn the CAD file on. Under the group library, we can turn on levels 5 through 18 CAD. The CAD file stays at level 5. That's where it was brought in, that's where we referenced it to, and so it always remains at that particular level, and you can see it's only shown down at that level. If I turn off my slabs, the CAD file is shown down at that level. We're now going to import a new CAD file at level 19 to represent the next level. So we'll go to single level mode. We're going to navigate up to level 19 and go back to a plan view, and we're going to start the process over. Keep in mind we have a reference marker that has been turned off, so I need to turn that reference marker back on, and I'll go under Adapt Line. That's the layer that it was created on. You can see our reference marker is shown right there. And so we'll go back to File, Import, DWG, DXF, and under Drawing Files, we'll just use the next file in sequence, Adapt 19. We'll calibrate again, move imported objects, and insert to level 19. And here we're going to call this, we'll just call it level 19. Say OK. We have the same type of situation that occurs. The marker's way over to the other side. And I'm going to calibrate again this column. This is going to be 1.67. And we'll say enter, and then we're going to zoom extents, grab the point that we want to align, which is this point here, and then align it with our reference point below. Okay, now if we wanted to check the alignment vertically, if I go to my full structure view, you can see that the model below is actually shown below level 19, but I also have the CAD file that I just imported also turned on. And the best way to do this is just to see if these columns align with the CAD file. So they clearly align, the walls align, everything here is still in alignment with what was done below. So now I'll go back to level 19, and in essence the process just starts over. So here we again convert the model in terms of the slab, columns, and walls. So I'll do this fairly quickly. Let's go ahead first and turn off our layers that we don't need. So we had adapt walls and also the text. There's a lot of layers here I have to manage, so we'll say OK, and now we're going to begin modeling the slabs. So in this case we're just going to model the slabs as they've been brought in. We'll go ahead and transform that slab, and then we also have an inner slab here that we're going to transform. We'll just assume they're the same thickness. The user can adjust the thicknesses as I showed earlier, and we're also going to now do the openings. So we'll select our openings again, and here we have another opening up there near that column, and I'll convert my openings, and then we're going to turn off all layers again. We're going to scroll down to adapt shear walls and openings and convert the shear walls. So in this case I'm just going to select all of them at one time, and we showed how to fix some of the mistakes that were made in conversion. I'll go ahead and just convert the walls. You can see again that there's a few issues that would need to be fixed in these wall groups. We'll skip that part this time, and then I'll go ahead and convert my columns. Now the columns again are likely going to be replicated. Again, that's due to the fact that there's multiple polygons representing each of the columns from the CAD file, but that can easily be adjusted inside of the CAD file before you import. So here we're going to then transform to columns. Okay, and we have all of those columns turned pink because there's duplicates. But we'll go ahead with this model, and I'll turn off both of my CAD files. And now I have my structural components represented for level 19. Okay, so what we can do now is bring in the next level. Now here we have two columns that are going up. We don't have a slab out there. That could have been a conversion problem again between the polygon that represented the slab or not. So we could again manually adjust this or segment the arc. If this slab edge was represented by an arc, segment it inside of AutoCAD. So there's two ways to do that. But we're now going to navigate up to level 20, and we're going to bring in the next CAD file. So we have level 20. We're going to import the last CAD file, which represents levels 20 through 22, and we do the same process. We're going to insert this at level 20, which is the start of this particular unique range, and we'll call this levels 20 through 22. Let's say OK. .67 zoom extents, and then we're going to move this from that point back over to our reference point. But in this case the reference point is not turned on, so we're now going to just exit out of that, and we have to do this using a different command, which is the same command. It's just we have to manually invoke the command. So we're going to turn on again our adapt line, and that should show us that reference mark right there. We'll go now to modify, and I'm going to just select all of this. We'll say modify copy move by translation in the XY plane, and I can select this as my first reference point. I'll go over here to my mark, and that becomes my second reference point. And then the process is identical to what we had earlier. This will conclude this video tutorial. If you have any questions or comments, please contact support@adaptsoft.com. Thank you.